You're very welcome back, Nigeria. You're still watching TBT Breakfast, and it's time to take it to the capital. We'll now link up with Shomomo Imodu and Tijesu Adeoye in our Abuja studio for the FCT Brief. Good morning, Abuja. How are you this morning?
Thank you, Olamide. It's good to be back this beautiful Monday morning. It's a bright and calm Monday morning here in the FCT.
Yeah, good morning, Nigerians. Beautiful Monday morning, and just back from the Anambra election. I think the dust is settled, so the next election will be a show we're waiting for.
Well, we'll look forward to that.
Exactly.
Let's go into what we have for you today. Good morning, Nigerians, and welcome to FCT Brief. The fight against corruption in Nigeria has always been a central promise of political administrations. But turning recovered illicit wealth back into public good remains a major challenge. Under President Bola Tinubu's administration, there is a renewed focus on not just tracking stolen funds, but fundamentally strengthening the legal architecture that governs their seizure and management. This legislative approach promises to be a game changer, moving asset recovery beyond mere recovery to a system of accountability and deterrence. This push for enhanced legal framework comes at a crucial time. The colossal value of Nigeria's underutilized and illegal acquired public assets represents a significant lost opportunity for national development. By prioritizing legislation, the Tinubu presidency signals an intent to harmonize the often conflicting laws across multi-anti-graft agencies. The goal is clear: to establish a centralized, transparent, and non-conviction-based system that can significantly seize and efficiently manage proceeds of crime, ensuring they are ultimately redirected to critical public projects. The potential impact of these reforms on Nigeria's economic landscape is massive. Effective asset recovery doesn't just replenish the treasury, it sends a strong message to both domestic and international investors about the government's commitment to the rule of law and fiscal integrity.
Recovered assets are no longer just statistics. They are capital waiting to be deployed into infrastructure, education, and healthcare sectors that directly improve the lives of Nigerians. This is about making corruption costly and integrity profitable. A successful legislative drive is paramount. It involves closing loopholes that have historically allowed politically exposed persons to evade justice, repatriating funds stashed abroad, and introducing mechanisms like unexplained wealth orders to hold individuals accountable for assets that far exceed their legitimate income. This requires meticulous drafting, broad consensus, and rigorous oversight from the National Assembly to ensure laws are robust, implementable, and stand the test of legal challenge. Now, to help dissect this complex and critical topic, we are privileged to have with us the man at the legislative forefront of this crucial national conversation. He is the lawmaker responsible for ensuring Nigeria's assets are protected and optimally utilized. Let's welcome Ademorin Kuye, the Chairman, House Committee on Public Assets. Welcome to our program, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me here with you.
Right. Yeah. Let's start this way. Nigeria is said to have billions of dollars in public assets, and sometimes probably underutilized, undervalued, or completely lost. Would you say that we're doing so much in helping to trace where these funds are, and when we recover them, how they are judiciously used? Because there are some questions about how recovered assets are relooted. So what would you say the National Assembly is doing to help keep the nation on track and the various organizations also on track?
Thank you once again. You'll recall that in the Ninth Assembly, the first step taken by the National Assembly is to establish an ad hoc committee to look into public assets that are in wrong hands, mismanaged, underused, like you rightly mentioned, and those that have been wrongly converted, by successive public officials, civil servants and what have you. And after that investigation, we came to the realization that in the 10th Assembly, there was need to establish a statutory committee to look holistically at the management and the use and the disposal of our public assets. In our investigation, we have discovered that we were able to establish, contrary to the opinion of the Nigerian Builders Association, that Nigeria has assets that are underused, abandoned, and all of you, what have you, that is up to the tune of about 860 billion naira. And when we started our investigation, part of what we did was to look at some of the assets that were wrongly sold. For example, during our investigation of the activities of the Nigerian College of Aviation and Technology in Kaduna, we discovered that 2 of our brand new helicopters were hurriedly sold just about the eve of the transition into the 2023, dispensation of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So, in the course of our investigation, we called the auctioneer. We discovered that the auctioneer that was, approved by the school, by the college, to sell 2 helicopters, was actually registered to sell pesticides.
Wow.
Yes. Was registered to sell pesticide. And then we discovered that instead of doing an advert for public bidding in national newspapers, they did the adverts in one local newspaper in Kaduna, in local language. And then the advert that was supposed to run for like 21 days, was just done for about 3 days. And then the helicopters were sold. And then we also discovered that the helicopters that were sold to companies that we couldn't even trace their addresses. So at the conclusion of that investigation, the House resolved that those helicopters should be recovered and be taken back to the schools. And I'm sure that the police are already handling that, because we recommended the arrest of some of the officials there, including the illegal auctioneers. Then, in the course of our work, we discovered that there was need for legislative framework to govern the use, the management, and the disposal of federal government assets. This has been done before by previous administration, putting them under the office of the Attorney General, in the recovery of assets, and then, the disposal of those recovered assets from politically exposed persons, And in order to prevent that act of recovering and then looting back, we gave the Ministry of Information, the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, new power. We did a repeal and reenactment of the Murphy Act, because the last one we had was in 1957. So, and that has gone to public, hearing. We have finished the second hearing, public hearing, and we're just at the concluding stage of that legislation. We're not only looking at that, we're equally looking at legislative framework to protect critical government assets, against vandalization and extreme terrorism. Right. You are aware that many times we have had cases of, transformer, transmitting station, power lines belonging to the federal government being vandalized. And when you look at the law, you discover that the punishments in those acts are so minimal to the extent that it does not discourage anybody.
All right, Honorable.
From committing those crimes. All
right, Honorable. There was a matter that came up on the floor of the House very recently, and that's the trade fair controversy. This has sparked one of the House's most heated debates in this session. Now, the bone of contention here is which committee should supersede that probe. Is it, some of your colleagues are saying the Committee on Commerce, and you are insisting that it belongs to your committee. Why are you so convinced that this project, or this probe rather, should be overseen by your committee?
You see, since the Committee on Public Assets came into being by virtue of the new standing order of the House, many of our colleagues are yet to come to the understanding of what the committee should be doing. They are so protective of their agencies that are under them. But what we say is this: you have the power. All other committees, have the power to oversight the functions of their committees, whatever they are doing, their budgets, the execution of their budget and all of that. But when it comes to those committees, the agencies, the FDAs, selling any government asset, then it must come to the Committee on Public Assets, because the mandate is so clear. Oversight all MDAs. For example, there was a time we wanted to open up investigation of assets of MPA. The Committee on Ports and Harbour, we had to have a tete-a-tete with them. I said, look, we are not taking over your job. We're just looking at the PPP arrangements of government assets that have been entered into by the MPA. Same thing with NTA. When we invited NTA, do you know that the MD that came to represent NTA could not tell us the number of stations that NTA have in the country? They put it to around 60 to 65 stations. And then we had to tell them, look, you guys go back. Let's have a database of all the assets. Nigerians know how much almost every Nigerian knows how much Nigeria owns our debt. But what we own, they don't know. They don't know. When I put the figure of abandoned assets to about 860 billion naira, people marveled. And then I pointed them to places like Port Harcourt, GRA, where you have a host of federal government assets, NIPOST, NTA, MPA, all of that, works. And then we said, do we even know how much of government assets, that's projects that have been abandoned in between? So the standing order is very clear. Order 109 is very clear on this matter. Even to the extent that all assets outside the shores of the country are to be oversighted by this committee. We were in USA. We saw some of the assets of the federal government. We sent some of our members to UK to go and look at the assets belonging to MPA. The old MPA used to have a lot of build assets, properties in UK. They are all lying there. Then you have the embassies in every country, properties belonging to the federal government. For example, we were investigating the foreign affairs at one point, and then we asked them about our embassies in Germany. They have two. One is being used, one is abandoned. And we are still paying all the rents, government rents, on that particular property. The money coming from the taxpayers' money. So we said, these wastages, we have to put an end to it. And then we have the recovered loot. It's a massive work. It's a massive work.
Honorable Kuye, it's quite interesting. The task ahead you is daunting, but definitely it must be done.
It must be done.
You talked about these assets, and Nigeria is still paying a lot of these assets that we don't even know exist. Mm-hmm. It's a committee taking a look at the NNPC, for instance, this one huge public asset that at the point there was this controversy that we don't even know how much crude that comes out from the soil. We don't even have the clear detail. Now, this is a public asset that we don't know, which means probably some funds going to private pockets. Now, do you also look at our refineries that have not been very productive? We have people employed in those refineries, and every year budgets, we budget for their salaries and all that. What is your committee going to be doing about all these assets? And the individuals that are culpable, like the first example you gave, what specific sanctions are you giving to the person who gave out that contract, not just to the contractor now?
Thank you once again. I recall that in the Ninth Assembly, I was a member of the committee on downstream petroleum, and under the leadership of Honorable Gayate from Kano. And we visited some of these refineries, looking at the turnaround maintenance they were doing in those refineries and the amount of money that has gone into that turnaround maintenance. And honestly speaking, we couldn't find anything on the ground that points to any maintenance being done. And then, there was a question I posed to the management then that if these refineries are not working, why are you spending so much money in training your officials? Billions of naira in training officials. Training them to do what? Because I don't understand. If the refineries are not working, why are you using billions of naira to train officials that are idle? So in this 10th Assembly, as the chairman of the committee and the new committee that we have had to engage the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, who is in charge of the federal government shares in the NNPCL. And I must confess that he's doing a lot of work, from the fillers, from what he's told us and what we have seen that he has done in monitoring the investments of the federal government in the oil sector. However, truth must be told, not much has been done in that aspect. And we're still, finding a way to work with the Regulatory Commission, the Oil Regulatory Commission, that's the AUPR. There was a motion that we passed, and then we engaged a consultant because we cannot be professional in every field. So we engaged some consultant, the House engaged some consultants to look at the amount of money that have been invested into the maintenance of our refineries, to look at the result that we have on the ground, whether it justifies, whether there is value for money, and then to look at solutions. That consultant have not submitted their report, and I'm sure that in no time we'll get response from them. Apart from that, like I mentioned before, we have close to 60,000 abandoned projects in the country. 60,000. To which the federal government is no more budgeting money for. And those projects are like almost completed. So we are taking a census, enumeration and evaluation of those projects, and finding a way to, if it is possible, enter into a PPP arrangement, because, of course, we can't deny the fact that the federal government does not have enough money to fund everything. So there is need for private investors to come, I must commend, investors like Alhaji Aliko Dangote, We were investigating their partnership, with MPA as it relates to their cement industry at the port, And we discovered that, for all the leases, all the times they were leased or they're in lease with the MPA, so much money has been made. But we cannot say that of some other agencies, And that is why we are insisting that, some sanctions should be meted out to some officials. We have recommended that, but we are careful not to make it look like a wish hunting of anybody. So that's just the point there.
Speaking of sanctions, you are the chairman of a very sensitive committee, and your committee is vested with the duty of oversight, and you sometimes probe some of these projects, some of these public assets. Can you tell us how easy or difficult it has been, considering all the powerful interests at stake? Has any of them affected or derailed your investigation? How have you been able to handle the pushbacks despite this powerful, sometimes political interests?
Your station was present when I gave the inaugural speech during the inauguration of our committee. And I said that we know that we are going to have to step on some big toes. And that has indeed happened. There have been pushbacks, resistance that no, it's not within your power to do. We have been taken to court by some perceived, companies that we felt have taken our properties, federal government properties, your property, my property, taking them unjustly. But when we start investigation, they quickly go to court and seek injunction. You'll recall that we were investigating the sale of the Delta Steel Company, which we felt was, given away by the Obasanjo regime, It was given away to their cronies and what have you, through the privatization policy that they did then. And the present office, occupier of the BP, Bureau of Public Enterprise, agreed with us that some of these assets were just giveaway, And when we started the investigation of how the process that led to the sale of those assets, the next thing you see is court papers coming. And because I'm a legal professional, and I respect our courts a lot. The moment I see an injunction, we put the matter in abeyance until the matter is resolved, and then we continue our investigation. We just want to use this platform to beg our courts to look at those frivolous applications that have been filed, asking the courts to stop the parliament from carrying out their constitutionally enshrined responsibilities, because we won't stop them from doing their work. They should also give us the room, the space to do our constitutional responsibility.
Okay. What is the House doing in terms of asset recovery to ensure that the various agencies that are presently handling them are very transparent in their dealing, so that it doesn't become a witch hunt, like you said? And we have a recognized institution, because a lot of people have said that EFCC prosecutes, ICPC prosecutes, they recover this fund, they're managing the funds. Too much work, too much burden on these agencies. Are we having such separation that, look, you can only, you recover these funds, but the management of these funds is taking off these individuals, and on the sideline, how far, like my colleague said, can you go? You've talked about the courts.
Yes, some time ago we did a letter to EFCC, and they have been very, very cooperative. We asked them for all the assets that they have recovered. We ask them for matters, list of matters that are in court. Sometimes they have temporary forfeiture, then they apply more for the final forfeiture of assets. So we look at all the assets that are temporarily forfeited to them and the ones that have finally forfeited to them. And then we ask them, since we have the list, we transfer them, transmit it to the Office of the Attorney General. And I must say that in that aspect too, this present dispensation have done very well. In view of, we have brought them to the realization, this committee have brought the federal government to the realization of, looking at that side of our economy, public assets, because it was an aspect that nobody even looked at before now. But now, under the Office of the Presidency, there are two bodies that are responsible for the sales of those assets. One is headed by the Surveyor General of the Federation. There's a committee under the Ministry of Housing. Then there is another committee under the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, which is the Presidential Implementation Committee on Alienation of Assets, federal government assets. So all these two bodies, we're working with them, we're monitoring that those assets are well disposed of. It's still difficult for EFCC to understand that, and we're looking at their laws, because the law gives the Secretary of EFCC the power to announce the time and how they are going to auction their assets. So we're looking at that law, so that that power, if it's possible for us to take it away, give it to another body. So theirs will now be, but for now, the law allows them to sell.
So the box that's on your table, you are the lawmakers.
Oh,
you can make the law.
Yes. So are you
committed to making that law for the sake of the country?
I want to assure you that that law will soon be amended.
Well, there are claims that abandoned assets have become breeding grounds for corruption and illegal occupation. Now, are there specific MDAs you hold responsible for overlooking this oversight? Because it's quite critical.
So don't don't let me start. That's a very serious one. Because you see, the thing is this: the guys there at the helms of affairs now met these rods, when they came into office, and I want to believe that many of them are really cooperating with us to ensure that some of these assets that have become hideouts for criminals. I was in Jos very recently, and I saw a lot of abandoned assets, that are hideouts for hoodlums, for criminals, criminal elements. And I mentioned it to one of the ministers, I said, look at these things, let's begin to try and address them. And he quickly swung into action, Right now, he told me that he's working on getting the census. And equally, the Ministry of Housing, a lot of federal government housing projects have been abandoned, all over the states. And, I've discussed with the ministers that, yes, it's good to have new ones, but the old ones that are almost completed, can we look at them too? Because they run into their thousands too. They run into thousands, hundreds of thousands, all over the place. Go to areas like boundary between Lagos and Ogun, in Ikorodu, see federal government housing units almost completed. They are already roofed. Some of them, they are removing their roofing sheets already. Go to places like Zamfara, you see federal government housing, that have been abandoned there. They are all over the place. Ogun State, Enugu, go there, you see them. Go to Kano, you see them. So we're looking at all of this. And then I was talking to the PMG too. The PMG, that's the Postmaster General of NIPOST. So many of their assets have been encroached upon by individuals, communities, who felt that these people are no more using this place. Let's take it for ourselves. Some of the assets have been sold by those indigenous communities, claiming that it was their land anyway. They just contributed it or gave it out to the federal government. So we're looking at quite a number of them. So I don't want to be, there are too many. All the agencies are liable. All the MDAs.
Honorable Ademorin Kuye, it's a pleasure speaking with you this morning. Thank you so much for your time with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being a part of our conversation. Now we'll hand you over to Lagos, where Olamide and the rest of the team are standing by to continue with the rest of the show.
Thank you very much, Tijesu and Eshomomo, for that very timely conversation. We need to be able to recover our assets legitimately. Thank you very much.